Clarity is a form of leadership. Most people believe burnout comes from doing too much, from long hours, from heavy responsibility, from the constant demands of modern life. And while exhaustion can certainly come from overwork, there is a deeper, quieter source of burnout that often goes unnamed. Burnout more often comes from confusion, from not knowing why you are doing what you are doing. When purpose is unclear, everything feels heavier, decisions drain you, effort feels wasted, even success feels empty. You can be busy and still feel lost. You can be productive and still feel depleted. You can be admired and still feel unsure whether any of it truly matters. This is not a failure of effort. It is a failure of clarity. Clarity changes that. Clarity does not mean certainty. It does not mean having every answer mapped out. It does not mean eliminating risk or doubt. Clarity means knowing what matters most and allowing that knowledge to guide your choices even when the path is imperfect. Clarity is a form of leadership, not just for organizations, teams, or families, but for your own life. Leadership is often misunderstood as influence over others. But influence begins with coherence within yourself. When your values, decisions, and actions align, people feel it. They trust you more. They follow more willingly. Not because you are louder, more charismatic, or more forceful, but because you are steady. Steadiness is persuasive. A clear person moves through the world differently. They are not pulled as easily by trends, pressure, or comparison. They do not react to every demand placed on them. They choose. And that choice creates calm, not only within themselves, but around them. This is why clarity is relief. Without clarity, everything becomes urgent. Every request feels important. Every opportunity feels like it might be the one you cannot afford to miss. Every criticism feels threatening. Every delay feels like failure. With clarity, urgency softens. You begin to see that not everything deserves your energy. Not every opportunity aligns with your purpose. Not every voice should shape your direction. Clarity gives you permission to say no, and saying no is one of the most underappreciated leadership skills. When you are unclear, you say yes out of fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of being left behind. Fear of being misunderstood. When you are clear, you say no out of commitment. Commitment to what matters most. Commitment to your values. Commitment to the long term rather than the immediate. This is not selfishness, it is stewardship. Your time, energy, attention, and integrity are finite resources. Without clarity, they are spent carelessly. With clarity, they are invested intentionally. Burnout often happens when effort is divorced from meaning. You can endure a great deal when you understand why you are enduring it. But when effort feels disconnected from purpose, even small demands become exhausting. This is why clarity precedes resilience. Resilience is not just about toughness, it is about direction. It is easier to keep going when you know where you are going and why. Clarity also protects you from the trap of appearance. In a culture obsessed with visibility, many people confuse what looks impressive with what is meaningful. They pursue recognition instead of contribution, activity instead of impact, motion instead of direction. Clarity interrupts this cycle. When you know your values, you stop chasing what looks good and start choosing what is good. You measure success differently. You ask better questions. You stop asking, will this make me look successful? And start asking, will this move me closer to what matters? This shift changes everything. Your schedule begins to reflect your values. Your decisions begin to reinforce your identity. Your actions begin to tell a consistent story, and consistency builds trust. People do not trust perfection. They trust alignment. They trust those whose words and actions agree over time. Clarity makes that alignment possible. Without clarity, people feel unpredictable, even to themselves. They overcommit, underdeliver, and constantly explain. With clarity, explanations become less necessary. The pattern speaks for itself. This is why clarity is quiet power. It does not demand attention. It earns respect. Clarity also requires courage. It is easier to stay vague than to be specific. Vagueness allows flexibility without accountability. It allows you to keep options open without committing to any, but vagueness also keeps you stuck. Specificity is clarifying and therefore exposing. When you name what matters, you also name what does not. When you define your values, you reveal where you may be misaligned. When you commit to a purpose, you accept the cost of that commitment. Clarity costs you something. It may cost you popularity. It may cost you certain opportunities. It may cost you the comfort of pleasing everyone. But what it gives you in return is coherence, integrity, peace. And peace is not the absence of challenge. It is the absence of inner conflict. Many people feel tired not because life is too hard, but because they are constantly negotiating with themselves. They say yes when they mean no. They pursue goals they do not believe in. They live by expectations they did not choose. This internal friction is exhausting. Clarity reduces friction. When your choices align with your values, energy returns, focus sharpens, confidence grows, not because you feel invincible, but because you feel grounded. This grounded confidence is different from bravado. It is not loud or performative. It does not need constant validation. It comes from knowing where you stand. Leadership begins here. Before you can lead others, you must be clear with yourself. Before you can inspire trust, you must practice alignment. Before you can offer direction, you must know your own. Clarity is not found by looking outward first. It is discovered by looking inward. This requires reflection. It requires asking honest questions, not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself. What do I value most? What kind of person do I want to be? What am I willing to sacrifice for what matters? What drains me because it is misaligned? What gives me energy because it reflects who I am? These questions are not meant to be answered once and forgotten. They are meant to be revisited as you grow, as circumstances change, as responsibility increases. Clarity is not static. It is living. As you gain clarity, you will notice changes in how you relate to pressure. Pressure no longer defines you. It reveals you. When you are clear, pressure does not push you off course. It tests your commitment to the course you have chosen. This is how leadership is formed, not in moments of comfort, but in moments of decision. Small decisions, repeated consistently, create a life of direction. They also create credibility. People watch how you choose when it would be easier to drift. They notice when you protect your values. They notice when you honor your boundaries. They notice when you remain steady in uncertainty. And often, without saying a word, you give them permission to do the same. This is leadership without position. You do not need authority to practice clarity. You need honesty. If you feel exhausted today, do not immediately assume you need rest. You may need clarity. Ask yourself, what am I unclear about? Is it your priorities, your purpose, your boundaries, your values? Where confusion lives, energy leaks. Clarity seals those leaks. It allows effort to flow toward meaning. It allows discipline to serve purpose. It allows action to feel intentional rather than frantic. This does not make life easy, but it makes it coherent. And coherence is deeply human. When your inner world makes sense, the outer world becomes more manageable, even when it remains difficult. Clarity is not pressure. It is relief. Relief from pretending. Relief from drifting. Relief from trying to be everything to everyone. Clarity allows you to be someone fully, consistently, and with integrity. That is leadership. Not as performance, but as presence. Not as control, but as commitment. And it begins with the courage to ask why, and the discipline to live by the answer. Clarity becomes visible not when life is calm, but when life makes demands. Anyone can claim values when nothing is at stake. Anyone can speak about purpose in theory. But clarity is proven in the moment you are asked to give something. Your time, your attention, your energy, your integrity. This is where boundaries enter the story. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. They are commitments meant to keep you aligned. They exist to protect what matters most from being quietly eroded by what matters least. When clarity is absent, boundaries feel cruel. Saying no feels harsh, selfish, or unkind. You worry about how it will be received. You imagine disappointment, rejection, or misunderstanding. But when clarity is present, boundaries feel honest. They are not reactions. They are expressions. They express what you value. They express what you are committed to. They express who you are becoming. This is why clear people say no differently. They do not apologize excessively. They do not over-explain. They do not attack or withdraw. They simply honor their priorities. And this often unsettles others. Not because you are wrong, but because clarity exposes confusion. When you live without boundaries, you may be liked, but you are not trusted. People sense inconsistency. They learn that your yes is negotiable, your no is temporary, and your values bend under pressure. Clarity changes that. When your boundaries are consistent, people may not always agree with you, but they know where you stand. And knowing where someone stands is deeply stabilizing. This is why boundaries build trust. Trust is not built through availability. It is built through reliability. A person who says yes to everything cannot be relied upon to mean it. A person who says no with intention can be trusted when they say yes. Clarity teaches you that every yes costs something. Every yes costs time that cannot be recovered. Energy that cannot be duplicated. Focus that cannot be divided endlessly without consequence. Without clarity, you pay these costs unconsciously. With clarity, you choose them. This is the difference between being busy and being purposeful. Busyness is reactive. Purpose is selective. Busyness is driven by urgency. Purpose is guided by importance. Many people feel overwhelmed not because they have too much responsibility, but because they have too little discernment. Discernment grows out of clarity. It allows you to pause before committing, to ask, does this align with what matters most right now? Not forever, not for everyone, right now. Because clarity also understands seasons. What matters most at one stage of life may not matter most at another. Clarity is not rigid, it is responsive. It adapts without losing integrity. This flexibility is often mistaken for weakness. In reality, it requires strength. Weakness reacts to pressure. Strength responds to purpose. When you are unclear, pressure decides for you. When you are clear, you decide under pressure. This is leadership at the personal level. Leadership is not about controlling outcomes. It is about choosing inputs. You cannot control how others respond to your boundaries. You can control whether those boundaries are honest. You cannot control whether clarity makes everyone comfortable. You can control whether it keeps you aligned. Alignment is what prevents burnout. Burnout often appears after long periods of self-betrayal, when you repeatedly ignore what you know to be true in order to meet expectations you did not choose. Clarity interrupts this pattern. It gives you language for your limits. It gives you confidence to protect them. It gives you permission to disappoint people temporarily, rather than disappoint yourself continually. This is not selfishness. It is maturity.
Mature leadership understands trade-offs. Every commitment excludes something else. Every focus creates a margin. Every priority leaves something behind. Clarity does not pretend otherwise. Instead, it asks you to choose consciously. Who are you becoming through the choices you are making? What are your decisions reinforcing? Are they aligned with your stated values, or simply with what is loudest, nearest, or most urgent? These questions are uncomfortable because they remove excuses. They place responsibility where it belongs, and responsibility is empowering. When you accept responsibility for your clarity, you stop waiting for permission. You stop blaming circumstances entirely. You stop hoping someone else will define your direction. You begin to lead yourself. Self-leadership is not self-centered. It is self-governed. It means your life is guided by principles rather than impulses. This inner governance is rare and deeply attractive. People are drawn to those who are not constantly negotiating their identity, who are not easily swayed, who do not perform clarity, but embody it. And embodiment is what gives clarity credibility. You cannot outsource this work. No book, mentor, or framework can give you clarity if you are unwilling to be honest with yourself. Clarity demands truth. Truth about what drains you. Truth about what excites you. Truth about what you are avoiding. Truth about what you are chasing for the wrong reasons. This honesty is quiet. It often happens alone. But its effects are public. Your calendar changes. Your relationships shift. Your energy stabilizes. Your decisions slow down but strengthen. You stop trying to manage impressions and start managing commitments. This is the power of clarity expressed through boundaries, not rigidity, not withdrawal, but intentional presence. Presence that knows when to engage and when to decline. Presence that understands that saying no to one thing is often saying yes to something deeper. And over time, this depth becomes visible. People may not remember every word you say, but they will remember how consistent you were, how steady, how aligned. That consistency is leadership, and it begins every time you choose clarity over comfort. Pressure is a revealer. It does not create who you are. It exposes who you have been becoming. When life is calm, it is easy to believe almost anything about yourself. You can imagine that you are patient, principled, generous, and grounded. Calm allows intentions to masquerade as character. Pressure removes that disguise. Under strain, explanations fall away. Justifications lose their power. What remains is instinct, habit, and belief, acted out in real time. This is why pressure feels threatening. Not because it is unfair, but because it is honest. Pressure reveals what you trust, what you fear, what you protect, what you sacrifice. And most importantly, it reveals whether your clarity is real or theoretical. When you are unclear, pressure decides for you. Urgency becomes your compass. Fear becomes your motivator. Reaction replaces intention. You move quickly but without direction. This creates chaos, not always outwardly but inwardly. You second-guess decisions. You overcorrect. You chase relief instead of alignment. And when the pressure passes, you feel disoriented, unsure of why you chose what you chose. Clarity changes how pressure functions. When you are clear, pressure does not disappear, but it loses authority. It no longer dictates your values. It tests them. This is a critical distinction. Pressure is inevitable. Leadership is how you respond to it. A clear person does not panic under pressure. They pause, not because they are slow, but because they are anchored. Anchoring is the internal work of leadership. An anchored person knows what cannot be compromised. They know what is flexible and what is not. They understand the difference between urgency and importance. This does not make decisions easy. It makes them coherent. Coherence under pressure is rare. Many people become someone else when stressed. Louder, harsher, more controlling, or more withdrawn, more avoidant, more passive. These shifts are not random. They are protective strategies learned over time. Pressure activates whatever you rely on most. If you rely on control, pressure makes you rigid. If you rely on approval, pressure makes you anxious. If you rely on avoidance, pressure makes you distant. Clarity invites a different response. Instead of asking, "How do I make this stop?" clarity asks, "What does this moment require of me if I want to remain aligned?" That question slows you down. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, leadership is formed. Leadership is not proven when decisions are obvious. It is proven when every option carries a cost. Pressure forces trade-offs. Time versus integrity. Comfort versus courage. Speed versus wisdom. Without clarity, these trade-offs feel unbearable. With clarity, they become navigable. You may still feel fear, but fear does not get the final vote. This is why clarity produces calm, even in difficulty. Calm is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of orientation. When you know where you are going, you are less shaken by obstacles. When you know who you are becoming, you are less tempted to abandon yourself for short-term relief. Pressure also reveals whether your clarity is practiced or merely stated. Many people can articulate values they have never tested. They sound good, they feel right, but they have never been carried through discomfort. Pressure is the test. It asks, will you still choose this when it costs you? Will you still honor your boundaries when the request is emotional? Will you still tell the truth when silence would be easier? Will you still move slowly when speed would earn praise? These moments define you, not because they are dramatic, but because they are decisive. Clarity does not eliminate regret, but it reduces it. When you choose an alignment, even imperfectly, you can live with the outcome. Misalignment lingers. It shows up as rumination, as resentment, as exhaustion that rest does not fix. This is why clarity is not a luxury in leadership. It is a necessity. If you lead without clarity, pressure will eventually lead you, and pressure is a poor leader. It values immediacy over wisdom. It rewards reaction over reflection. It confuses intensity with importance. Clarity restores hierarchy. It reminds you what is first, what is foundational, what must not be traded away, even temporarily. This does not make you inflexible. It makes you trustworthy to yourself and to others. People feel safer around those who remain consistent under strain. Not perfect, consistent. Consistency under pressure communicates something powerful, that your values are not situational. This is how trust deepens, not through grand gestures, but through quiet decisions made when no one is applauding. Pressure also humbles. It exposes gaps between who you believe you are and how you actually behave. This exposure is not condemnation. It is instruction. Clarity grows when you are willing to learn from pressure rather than defend against it. Instead of explaining your reaction away, you observe it. Instead of excusing it, you examine it. Instead of hiding from it, you integrate the lesson. This is mature leadership. It does not demand perfection. It demands honesty. Honesty allows refinement. Over time, you become less reactive, not because pressure decreases, but because your clarity deepens. You begin to recognize familiar stress patterns. You notice when fear is speaking loudly. You notice when urgency is distorting perspective. You notice when you are tempted to abandon alignment for relief. And noticing gives you choice. Choice is the currency of leadership. Without it, you are driven. With it, you are directed. Pressure will always come. Deadlines, conflict, uncertainty, loss, responsibility. The question is not whether you will face pressure. The question is who you will become when you do. Clarity answers that question ahead of time. It prepares you not with scripts but with principles. Principles travel well into chaos. They hold when circumstances do not. This is why clarity must be practiced before pressure arrives. You do not rise to clarity in a crisis. You fall back on whatever clarity you have already built. Leadership is formed in advance, in the quiet choices, in the boundaries kept, in the values honored when it would be easier not to. Then when pressure comes, as it always does, you are not scrambling to decide who you are. You already know, and that knowing steadies you.